So I'm going to get started. So my name is Jane Nikopoulos. I'm the Associate Director of AI Education at the Wharton AI and Analytics Initiative. That's the first two times I'm going to say AI. If someone wants to keep track of how many times I'm going to say it, let me know. But yeah, so at my position, I've gotten a lot of requests by students, even staff, faculty, just getting any kind of information or knowledge on how to create, some sort of AI assistant or agent or just some way that they can start applying this crazy new technology to the data set that they have, the business problems, creating just a teaching tool. There's a lot of different reasons why we're here in this room today. So I wanted to have a cohesive way of just being able to, put all that together. So yeah, getting first though into a little bit, plugging my group. So we run the AI and Analytics Accelerator. It's a student program. It is working with companies on business problems. We create small teams. You get to work with improve your analytics skill set. You get to work with a Wharton mentor on these projects. They're semester long. I'm going to fly through this a little bit because we have a lot to get through. But yeah, you get exposure to executives at leading companies. We work with a ton of companies. You'll see in a second. There has been times where I've seen students get offered positions 3 times my salary to jobs. So it's really great if you're really trying to get some great job experience, real world data sets, real world problems. So yeah, definitely check it out. And then these are just some of the companies that we work with. So a lot of really great big names. Okay, so why are we here? The technological bar has been raised once again. Just like we have learned how to, as humans, adapt to cars and phones and smartphones and computers, we now have to talk to something else now. We're figuring something else out, and that's working with AI, figuring out how AI works. So, what are tools and assistants? What can they do? And also, originally this is part of the title. The word agent is getting thrown out a lot. I don't necessarily get into AI agents as much because the reason why that change was made is because assistants, that somewhat has a connotation of you're being helped or they're helping you. Agents, which are now being developed, have some sort of autonomy where they will just go out and do whatever they're tasked to do. Assistants has something to do with, you coming in and having some sort of agency with what you're doing. So, we all know just basic AI assistants, our Siris, our Cortanas, Alexa, things like that. This is like the dawn of it. And then now we're starting to see a lot more like customer service chatbots come in. Lots of these websites are trying to use this just for answering the same question that always comes in through the company. You only get directed to a representative when it's a really complex question, but a way to filter, that process out. And then now we're starting to see content generators. So, everyone wants the bot that will just read their email for them, turn it into bullet points so that, it's easily digestible, or write emails, that wonderful process of everyone's using AI to make their emails, and then everyone's using AI to read the emails. There's plenty of loops with that. We'll kind of get into that later. One that I like a lot is teaching or teacher's assistants. So, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Everyone who's registered will be getting the slides afterwards. Also for questions, I put in a couple breaks that will all stop because I'm obviously going to be speaking through it, but I'll add some stops in here for questions. If you have a burning question, definitely raise your hand. I'll get to it. All right, so content generators, and then we have full data analysis tools and data like pipelining. So full automation. I don't get into this part too much. It's mostly about content generators, but there are some really incredible ways that these tools can just automate entire workflows. Even ChatGPT, which we'll get into. So, ways to develop these AI tools. How are we actually building these things? So, in the first bucket, we have our tool builders, the ones that are curated for us. They're just the very simple, guided development. It doesn't have too much coding attached to it. Create your custom GPTs, things like that. There's been a large moment of time. So ChatGPT, OpenAI was far in the lead with all these developments. And then recently, they've slowed down a little bit. That's been GPT-4 for a bit. So so they've slowed down, and all these other larger companies have been able to catch up. So, kind of why OpenAI has been so far ahead is that they're a smaller, nimble company. They're able to make big changes, be able to push things out. But now that the titans of the industry have had some time, they've caught up and have very similar helpful tools like this. So the next way to get into it is APIs and coding. So yeah, there's 100% way, there's a way to code all of the things that we're going to be talking about today. If you want the most customizable experience, if you want the, everything you want to make the front end, the back end, have full control, 100% it's the coding part that you want to get into. But for today, because it's only an hour, less than that now, we'll just be focusing on the guided experience. But just so you know, that guided experience is pretty similar across all the different platforms, and I've experienced with all of them. And I'll let you know the differences between them. And if you are really excited about APIs and coding, definitely stay posted. We're going to have a hackathon that is where we're going to give you an API key, and you get to just run free with it. So, well, not too free, but so definitely look out on our events page for that. Okay, so the different tool platforms for building assistants. Said it a million times already. OpenAI has ChatGPT. Very simple. We all know it. We all have accounts apparently. So it's great. There's been creating custom GPTs out for a little while now. But like I was saying, other companies have caught up. So Amazon Bedrock. Everyone worked with this at all, maybe through a class or anything like that? Okay, Amazon Bedrock is a very similar process. So personally, working with some different companies, this became an attractive option because we were working with HIPAA data. So data that is extremely protected. So since you're working through the Amazon network and S3 buckets, which are already HIPAA compliant, this was something that we could think about. And the next, Vertex AI through Google Cloud. Once again, any experience anyone has with this? Okay, yeah, a couple people. This is probably the most new. This is something that I went on, again, before to prepare for this presentation. They added more stuff to this. So this is the highest learning curve. And go to that now. So the pros and cons of each platform. Obviously, all of us are sold on OpenAI, but to give you some insight into the other platforms because some of them are pretty easy to get into. But custom GPTs, it's great, super easy. Obviously, the one we're all a part of. It's the current AI forerunner. Like I said, they're lightweight. They can move quickly. The cons. So it's only the OpenAI models. We're in a rat race of who has the best model right now. Some of these other platforms will let you choose the different models. So if one is ahead or one does pulls very far ahead of the others, you can use them. But OpenAI is only limited to their specific models and different ones, but still. And probably the biggest con is the fact that it's not usually shareable. So I'm happy today that I have one of my bots I'm going to share with everybody. And you can kind of have it, but for the most part, they're trying to gate everything behind a $20 subscription, which I'm pretty sure we've all seen. So it's really not. You're trying to create something new. They really want to have their own ecosystem that they want everyone to be a part of before you can actually share what you're creating. All right. So next is Bedrock. So has a variety of, if you want to use the different models. Claude Opus takes off. We want to use that instead. This is something that's very similar. They have it is a lot easier to put together now, but you are within that AWS ecosystem, so it's really great to scale. And things are in S3 buckets. If you have to do permissions, there's their whole policy system. Not sure how familiar everyone is with AWS, but it also kind of gets into the cons. The infrastructure is incredibly complex. I'm certified to work in the AWS environment. And then that complicates everything else like pricing. But if you want a more careful, tailored experience, different models, the AWS Bedrock is so great. Vertex AI. So really quick here this is the best one for I have an AI tool idea. I don't want OpenAI really having too much control over it. I'm really want to develop something. This is your go-to. It is very, very complex, but it's the easiest way to share it with other people, companies, putting it into a website, things like that, this is your best way to go if you're trying to still have that somewhat guided experience without coding. And yeah, so just the cons, like I said, steep learning curve, lots of coding involved, and also somewhat limited models. And some quick honorable mentions: IBM Watson X. That's if like you're going to be part of like a Fortune 500 company. That's that. It's like you can import like your entire like all your business records, things like that. It's very much so for large companies. Claude is great. It's not really. They have a lot of interesting features and tools, but nothing that is too customizable. Like if you actually like want to build something yourself. Party Rock. You'll see Amazon Q. Amazon just wants to throw so many things at the wall because they can, because they have the money to. Party Rock is just a very simple, and this is the kind of page that they have here for it. They want to make Bedrock more approachable instead of having it, you join the whole AWS infrastructure. This is pretty close to being what I use today, just because it's very easy to send, get into it, but still has an AWS powered framework. And then this I just found out about literally last night and wanted to add. Amazon Q is just this new ChatGPT, like something else that they're adding just onto their platforms. Still figuring out exactly what this is in the space. And then NVIDIA decided that they wanted to make even more money, so they're actually coming into the game themselves with their own playground and platform. Still a lot of development and things that need to be done here, though. But this is NVIDIA, definitely something to look out for. And they also have great learning resources just overall about the space. Okay, so what is the standard process for creating an AI tool? So before we actually get into it, it's kind of just talking it over. So first, just your generic description of what you have, like what you're having to make. So you're going to want a name, a helpful description. This is where you're going to start like guiding people or yourself, just like reminding yourself of what you're creating your tool to do. Just very simple, some starter prompts to push it in the right direction for it to be used. And then the next big step is curating what's called a knowledge base. Who here has heard RAG before, like in some context? Okay, so it takes an entire, it takes a nuclear reactor to train these large language models, right? But that doesn't really help us when we have, we want it just to be knowledgeable of, a couple PDFs that we have, in our storage. Like if you want to make a teaching assistant for a class, you only want to know the materials that you're giving it. So that's what RAG is. It's this small set of information that you can pass off to the AI chatbots to just access separately. It's an outside data set that it can access, and it doesn't have to you don't have to retrain the whole model. It will go here first before actually trying to answer your question. So it's very, very important. Next. So prompting, we do your normal prompts in ChatGPT. So this is a pre-prompt. This is your custom instructions. So when you have your user, or if you're interacting with your bot, this is what it will look at first before anything else. So it's the way, and then to tool this, or how to actually work with this, this is where you're assigning the role to your chatbot. So let's just say you're creating a customer service chatbot, or you're creating a teaching assistant. That's where you're telling it, this is what you're doing, this is who you are, and how you're going to interact with me. This is also where, and we'll get more into this later, you build in safeguards. So we'll hold that for the end because I have some funny examples for it. And then last is capabilities. So capabilities are things like, we've seen DALL-E, so you can ask ChatGPT, hey, make a image for me. So this is something that is separate from the large language model. It's like another tool that it can have access to. So you put in a prompt, you say hey, create me an image of, and then once it sees you saying, hey, create me this image, it will go contact DALL-E to proceed with that request. Code interpreters the same way, hey, write me some code, things like that. It's just other different tools that it can attach to that are built into the system. There's one more that I don't have listed here, because it's a little bit of a rabbit hole, but we'll get into it later. But these are the core, mostly core for your generic custom GPT. This is what you need. This is exactly what you need. All right, I know everyone's heading away, but I do want to move forward. All right, so getting a little bit more into the knowledge base, and actually how to figure out what you want to put into this thing. This, like how, like they're in the very beginning of ChatGPT, like being able to write like good prompts and things like that is a little bit unknown. But now there's some strategies to actually figuring out how to write good prompts. This is the new current unknown. How the large language model or the model that you're using will access this information properly, we don't really know right now. We don't know. It's being put into the system. I'm sure, I've done the research. There's definitely, some people will say, oh no, it will go through this. I've plenty of times have put specific things in the knowledge base and queried them through my tool, and it will skip right past it. And it's, still unknown as to how exactly it works. But from what I've found from creating these for others, this is my guide to you for how to actually develop this. The first one is just less is more. This is something that you're, when you're prompting and you're asking it to do something, if you're throwing in every single PowerPoint for every single class, if you're throwing in, a ton of PDFs, it will easily misconstrue or it will pass through things a lot easier. You really want to fine-tune what the knowledge base is to, an X amount of files and have it, not be redundant, not, be too much for the system. All right, next. So the interesting thing about how this whole process works is that it is essentially reading everything in as binary, like the ones and zeros. So something that I found is that you need to be as close to plain text as possible. So by plain text, I mean like a text document, so not even a Word document. When all that information, like the font, how like the size of the font, all that boils down into binary and how it reads the text. It's only looking for the text, right? Because it's a large language model. It's not doing image. It's not like doing what's it called, like machine learning on the images or everything like that. So it'll say, oh yeah, upload your PowerPoints. It's just looking for the text on that PowerPoint. So, like I said, you're creating, a teaching assistant for yourself. You're uploading your, PowerPoints to your classes, things like that. It won't see graphs on the page. It'll see the insights at the bottom if the professor left them, or things like even in a PDF document, like the pictures on there. It won't necessarily read those. So when you're making this knowledge base, really focus in on making sure that all the information you're putting in it's just the text. Like understand that it's just the text that's going to go through. That might change in the future, but for the most part, and actually how it works coding-wise, without getting too much into it, it's just looking for binary. I've seen this where people have resume evaluators for certain jobs. They'll parse your resume through. People, you'll have oh, I really like this font that I downloaded off the internet. I want to put it in my PDF that I have on, put it into PDF. That font, since it's not something that's normal, when it goes and gets read in by some of these AI systems, it won't see anything. It doesn't recognize it, and it will come in as missing characters. And now that first pass that you put your resume through doesn't go through because it's not being read properly. So this is even something to know and understand, just the crazy AI world that we're going to live in. Make things as easy to read for the machines as possible. So close to plain text. And the next part is link your knowledge base and your custom instructions. We'll talk about custom instructions a little bit later, but you want to have the tool understand that it has access even to these, it has access to the different materials. We'll see in mine that I'll show later. I specifically say, you have access to this document, use it for this. Simple as that. All right, and then the next one is, so I want to make a video game for fun in my own time, and I wanted to create a AI assistant to help me make that video game slowly. And I had no idea even where to start with something like this. So I asked it, what would you put into the knowledge base for this task? And it was just like, oh, well, that's easy. Let's do a roadmap. Let's do, and it told me everything that it thought it would need for, the entire process of creating itself. So it's pretty smart. It totally made sense and did it and worked great. So, don't be afraid, set it up at first and then, start asking it questions, and maybe it can even help you with creating this knowledge base. And like I was saying, this process is not solved. The way that this works, not concrete, will change. Even how it works in coding, they've made promises for how it's going to change in the future. So that means just for sure, test everything, test as much as you possibly can with your tool. If you're having common questions come up or common ways that you're using it, make sure that it's answering it properly. And yeah, it's just difficult. And the hardest part for all of this, mostly, is just finding and getting all the information that you actually need for it. All right, give it a sec. Any questions on this so far? I could probably just do one. Yes?
You see a lot of models, a lot of programs that you can use, but you didn't say about the new models like the Facebook, Llama models, any of the tools that you say use that models, that Google uses, I don't know. Or I know that NVIDIA uses that. And did you test that? What do you think about?
Oh yeah, yes. As far as how RAG works for all these different systems, yeah, absolutely. It's obviously something that they're improving upon, but it's not concrete. Sure, some of the new models it'll get better and better, but for right now, here's exactly how you're supposed to have everything set up. There's no real guideline yet because it's still somewhat of an unknown. But this space is moving so fast. I've given multiple workshops now on this whole subject, and things change for sure. Some things stay the same, some things change. It's this for right now, how it works, I highly recommend. And it's also, most of these are just things I don't see changing. 100% plain text is always going to be a problem for sure. All right, custom instructions. So this is just your prompt engineering. Not, once again, entirely solved, but OpenAI now has released great guides to prompt engineering. They have gone through the whole process of really trying to solve out how to be a good prompt engineer, how to ask the best questions. Definitely take a look at this. It is very extensive. I do an entire workshop purely on prompt engineering for our hackathon. So, rabbit hole right here to go into for sure. Lots of tactics. I am definitely going to move on from it though. Alright, so we got some instructions. You want to assign a role. Helping guide the bot into understanding what it's doing is obviously the best thing for it. If you're creating an assistant, it will pull information from its training, from the language, how to be better at that task. You also want to get into the detail about just how it's going to talk to you. Formal, informal, brief, lengthy. Not every single time you want to talk to it, do you want an entire, laundry list of things. If you want short, brief answers, you have to tell it to perform that way. And then, so just tell the tool its purpose and how it's supposed to execute on its plan. You're here to educate me. And this also gets into a little bit more with, you want it to continue to prompt me, have it carry the conversation. Don't just, when I sit down, I don't want to have to, you just say, okay, I want to start. Set up that process for how it's going to guide you through the information. This is where it really starts to diverge from ChatGPT. You can give it the goal in mind, and then it will just walk you through it, as long as you set up that process and how to execute on that plan. Yeah, exactly. Provide instructions on how to guide the conversation, and then, have it ask for a specific detail before you even do the request. I'll show you with my bot, or my tool, that whenever someone says, hey, write me an email, it goes, no, stop. What kind of email? Who's it? What is the audience? Who's it to? Who's it to exactly? What is the tone of the email? it doesn't just like ChatGPT start immediately just working on it and then you have to like refine from there. My bot will stop whoever's using it and go, let me get the full details before I get into what we're actually going to do here. I highly recommend that. And then, so talked about it a little bit before, you want to, in the custom instructions, reference everything that it has access to and say, you know, how to proceed with those things. So if you're ever asked to create an image, you know, use DALL-E, and then like how to use that tool if it's something special, you'll see a lot of like the custom GPTs that come out. They will specifically just prompt engineer around using that tool specifically. And just like before, less is more. The more instructions that you put in there, the more it can misconstrue along the way, especially with redundant information. You want to just boil it down to the core process. Yeah, as simple as that. Any questions on this? Okay, cool. All right, actions. This I didn't get into before. This is, since looking into it, going to probably be an entire workshop on its own. That's going to be advanced tool making. Actions, it's a lot of text, but pretty much it gives you the ability to interact with through what's called like a webhook or through other websites. So like we have like DALL-E and like, you know, code interpreter that are baked into OpenAI's system. With actions, you're able to use APIs, and it's just a fancy way of saying, like here's an example, ChatGPT, fetch me these articles, and then when it reads fetch me these articles, it knows to connect to a database that has articles already, you know, found for you, pulls them back into ChatGPT, and you go, okay, great, pick this one article, write a LinkedIn post a LinkedIn post for me. And then it will read that information and actually do all the posting for you. So, you know, like the whole process, someone writes a AI developed, you know, article, puts it on LinkedIn, your AI reads it, and then you make another post about it. That perpetuating cycle. So that is something that is doable by current day ChatGPT. This is its own thing. I will show you an example of it, a very simple example of it. But if you're curious about this, there's a lot, you know, lots of resources out there. But I will have to move on from it because, yeah, it is a lot. All right. Any questions so far? Okay, cool. All right. So let me open up and show you how I've created. So within my group, I've created a couple of GPTs, some that I'm working on passively, but this is the number one that's used. It is my marketing content creator bot. So we have something that I developed with my team, the marketing team in my group. We've worked on a knowledge base and created this tool. And it is something to essentially help the people who are writing our blog posts, our LinkedIn posts, have a start at, you know, that kind of content, just so they can, you know, deploy it faster and they can work on, you know, a multitude of other things. So I'm going to click on it, edit. All right. So even before this, if you're creating a new one, ChatGPT also has this great builder. It will literally just talk you through the entire process. So if you don't want to do the manual configuration of writing all this stuff in, you can just talk to a bot who will just set up the whole thing for you. But to show you how I have mine set up, I have the name, the description, just giving, you know, an understanding of what's going on. Some conversation starters, so just simple, easy, early prompts. When you click on one of these, it just immediately says, you know, has a predetermined one that it will just give you. And then here is my knowledge base. So I've attached 3 documents here. Can't necessarily show them, but these are the documents that I have. I have important terms, completely separated from everything else, so it just has an idea of what the terms are. I have the drafting language, so how to actually draft, the proper process of drafting some of these articles. And then a content style guide. This is kind of where I have some of the examples of previous posts that I put into the system. And then I give it the ability to use web browsing. So in case there's a new article that comes out, they can look up that new article and then write information on it. And then, just in case, it's image generation, but we don't really use that one. And then obviously I've turned off that the code interpreter because we're not really writing code here. This is just something to create marketing content. So let me show you my custom instructions. So this is how I've set up the instructions. So given it its purpose, I've given it it's like second side purpose. I'm also making it so that whenever, let's just say someone wants to talk to our group in any way, they can talk to this bot and we'll tell them about like our accelerator, like I talked about it, or talk about our other offerings and events that are coming up. And then there, so I have include your questions until you feel comfortable creating the piece. Always include a summary of changes. So let's just say sometimes it's a LinkedIn post. It's easy to write on its own. If someone wants to just have this as a way to check, it's like to check with the piece that's already written. They can just have it throw it through this. They'll say, "Oh, looks good. I made these changes." And then also, I want to have feedback on it, so I actually give it a link. And if anyone wants to be like, "Oh, I've been using it," anyway, it will actually give out the link to the person when they ask for it to provide feedback. And then, lastly, you have the ability to reference your knowledge base and are recommended to do so. And then I give it, hey, you have this, use it here. This is something, I'm actively working on. It's not, I don't think, perfect, but it's good enough for what it needs to do right now. And also, I keep asking for feedback, and everyone says it works just fine, great, right now. So I don't really know what to change. I don't want to change it too much. So yeah, it's just your typical ChatGPT. So I'll click here, what can you help me with? So first it says, searching my knowledge. And then we'll look through the custom instructions, and then we'll look through the knowledge guide, or the knowledge base, and answer the questions. Any questions so far on how I went about? And this is, one example. I also have my personal account, but I make a lot more of these. Any questions? Yep.
Yeah. So the knowledge base is everything that ChatGPT already has access to, plus these 3 PDF documents. How does it think about it differently? All of its current access versus these 3.
So there is a big separation, and I'm going to get a little technical with this for this question. So the training, so the model's trained on how it understands things. That's where this model was developed on thousands of Reddit posts and Twitter posts. It understands the meaning of those, meaning of words between from what it's learned from mass amounts of text all over the internet, different books, things like that. So it has some idea of what's going on with business or something like that, but it doesn't necessarily have any idea what our small group is. So that is where the knowledge base comes in. In the training data, sure, there might be some Wharton stuff in there, absolutely. But to give it an exact, this is what this is this side data set that it has access to. Yes?
And when you enable web browsing, does it mean that it will be able to browse through current articles and all, and not just its own?
Correct. Yep. Yeah. So that's a capability. Semi-new, but 100%. It can. Whenever you have to tell it to do it, it won't just naturally. And this is something that you can even put into the custom instructions. If you're ever asked about current articles, make sure you use web browsing, because maybe it'll say use a current article. But then it thinks okay, but its current training data only goes up to 2022 or something like that. So that is something, obviously I'm going to take that into consideration, put that in my custom instructions. If you get asked for a current article, be sure to use web browsing. That's awesome. I'm going to thank you. Yes.
So for the knowledge base, you said less is more.
Yes.
Any tips on what's less, what's more?
Like I said, it's no idea. Just test it. Still playing around with it myself. These 3 documents are probably 5 pages each, and I think this is on the very low end. I think you can go to probably 10, 5 page. It's so arbitrary. I don't know. It's I wish I had more. Yes.
Yeah, I was curious have like, let's say normally also when we're not creating our own custom GPT, but they're using ChatGPT for like multiple use cases because in this case you're training it for a specific use case.
Yes.
And in that case, as we upload our own emails, etc., or our own PDFs, it does get trained to your own style. Like,
Yeah. Well, oh, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, so how does that really like distinguish itself in that sense? So how should one think of creating a custom GPT with a specific use case vis-a-vis just like training it over time?
Yeah, absolutely. So real quick, I'll show you. The difference between making something that I don't want to make 30 different bots that I have to interact with, in different ways. So if you want to get very specific with stuff, I would highly recommend making special agents for that, and maybe even making one that's like an all-encompassing one. I have something like that, but there is always customized ChatGPT. I don't necessarily use this, but sorry, I'll go back again. I went too fast with that. So in the top, the top right, where your account information is, everything like that. There's customized ChatGPT. So here, these are another set of custom instructions that come beforehand. This is where you're going to tune it to more of like your personal stylized response. So if you don't want to make a million GPTs and you will have like overall, I like short answers, that's where you're going to put that. You're like, how would you like, it even gives you great thought starters. This is something else you can get into. You don't want to make a whole AI assistant. You want to just have, generic overarching responses. This custom instructions is great. I think this also pairs with some of the tools. So, and then, you can turn off like the different capabilities. There's also something else that's called memory that's in ChatGPT. I leave this off because it scares me a little bit, but as you're having conversations with ChatGPT, it'll pull text, like it'll say like, oh, I just got a dog, think like, oh, you got a dog? Okay, great. And then it will remember that, so the next time you have a conversation with it, it'll have that information to pull from. They'll do it. Yes?
So maybe outside of the scope of this discussion, but there's something called agentic AI as well, right? Where you can actually use agents to do these tasks.
Mm-hmm.
So the actions part that you should do that leads into that, or is that something?
That's starting to lead into that. That's a great segue. There's more questions, but we'll get towards the end. So we got like 15 minutes left. So let me go back to this. There's one more bot that I want to show everyone. All right, so some questions about security. We want to safeguard our AI assistants. Why is that? GM dealer chatbot agrees to sell 2024 Chevy Tahoe for $1. We don't want that. It's hallucinating. Your bot going off the rails. That is not something that we need, right? Another one. Microsoft's new AI chatbot has been saying some crazy and unhinged things. This is the only thing that I could put on here. The slide that I would get in trouble with anything else. I just want to love you and be loved by you. Okay. If you ever give your if you want like a personal one, but if you're ever trying to share something like this, you don't want it saying something like that. Your custom instructions are where you're going to build those safeguards.